All right, we are leaving that package right now. We're going to break in and listen in to East Tennessee, where we are hearing charges have been dropped against the two teens accused of starting the Smoky Mountain wildfires. Let's listen.
All right, please silence all your cellular devices. Thank you all for coming here today. I'd like to give a brief statement and make some comments on behalf of my client, and then we will take a very limited amount of questions. Today, charges were dropped in their entirety against two juveniles charged with their involvement in the largest wildfire in the history of the state of Tennessee in the last century. My individual, John Doe 2, was charged with arson. Today, shortly after 12 noon, the Attorney General, Jimmy Dunn, for the 4th Judicial District, entered an order in the juvenile court for Sevier County dismissing those charges in their entirety. One thing I want to reiterate, even though these charges are dismissed based on the rules of juvenile procedure and the applicable laws in the state of Tennessee, the identity and location of these two juveniles remains confidential. I would ask and caution you all to respect and abide by those provisions of Tennessee law. The reason for the dismissal was twofold. I will say at the outset that this was one of the most complex and comprehensive juvenile prosecutions in the state of Tennessee. It comprised interviews of hundreds of witnesses, thousands of pages of documents, expert reports by a variety of state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies. During this process, our firm's independent investigation revealed that the Chimney Tops 2 fire did not cause the Gatlinburg fires beyond a reasonable doubt. In fact, regardless of whether it could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, the evidence showed there was no causation between Chimney Tops 2 and the Gatlinburg fires. This is due in large part to a number of superseding intervening causes and causal breaks. These include a lot of information that I'm sure will come out in the next few weeks, but primarily a historic event, and that was the weather and the winds. Those winds created a lot of devastation, and this was a superseding intervening cause and a causal break that our investigation showed, and the prosecution agreed, proved that there was no causation between Chimney Tops 2, my client, John Doe number 2, as it relates to the Gatlinburg fires. Now, additionally, as we were representing and investigating this matter, it also came to our firm's attention that the Sevier County Attorney General's office did not have legal jurisdiction to pursue a prosecution in the national park. Pursuant to federal law, there is a requirement, if there is going to be concurrent state and federal criminal jurisdiction on national park property, that a memorandum of agreement must be signed by the Secretary of Interior and the Governor of the state of Tennessee. Significantly, in this case, in 1996, there was a memorandum of agreement executed by the Secretary of the Interior and Governor Sundquist. That memorandum of agreement, which is filed in the Sevier County Register of Deeds office, specifically excludes the Great Smoky Mountains National Park as having a location where local prosecutors, state prosecutors would have jurisdiction. So at the outset, this prosecution appeared to be an unfortunate rush to judgment. But at the same point, at the end of the day, after reviewing hundreds of documents, a lot of interaction between the defense team and prosecutors. They exercised a great deal of good judgment in agreeing to dismiss this case in its entirety today. Now, having said that, on behalf of John Doe number 2 and his family, myself personally, my law firm, and everyone that has worked on this case, we want everyone to know that our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of the Gatlinburg fire. Our prayers and thoughts go out to anyone that lost a loved one or had a loved one injured, that lost property or had an interruption of business. So in no way, even though I am very pleased that our hard work and our efforts over the past few months has resulted in a dismissal for my young man, who I will tell you, and I wish I could tell you more about him, because he's a very fine young man from a very fine family. But regardless of that, that family and my legal family want to put the families of the Gatlinburg fires first. Now, having said that, we will entertain a few questions.
Is there a chance the U.S. Attorney's Office will pursue more charges federally for these teens in terms of destruction of property and vandalism for the park itself?
Well, again, I don't want to comment on what the U.S. Attorney's Office may or may not do. I will say that based on the memorandum of agreement that we have reviewed very carefully, the U.S. Attorney's Office would have jurisdiction over any criminal offense committed in the park. But then again, if you read the statement by the Sevier County Attorney General's office, clearly they acknowledge that the winds were a supervening cause, and that it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to prove that the conduct of the juveniles on Chimney Tops resulted in a significant arson.
And you said this was a misfortunate rush to judgment on these 2 juveniles. Do you feel like that happened because they were trying to divert the responsibility elsewhere in these wildfires and the cause of those?
Absolutely not. And again, I don't want to, I am not in any way imposing any bad motive on anyone involved in this case. In fact, I said, even though it started out as an unfortunate rush to judgment, it ended up as a situation where there was a great deal of good judgment exercised by prosecutors. But again, when you have, first of all, when you have a fire of this complexity, the largest wildfire in the last century in the state of Tennessee, you have probably one of the most comprehensive juvenile prosecutions in the state of Tennessee. It takes time for the defense, and it takes time for law enforcement, and it takes time for everyone to look through the documents, look at all of the issues, and that's what I would attribute why things have changed since the original press conference announcing the detention of these young men.
There's been some accusations that procedurally it did not go as planned. The time frame to move them to an adult court and their detention time frame ran out on filing paperwork on detention.
First of all, we cannot and will not comment on anything that has occurred in juvenile court. So I want to be very clear with that. Anything that occurred in the juvenile court system is confidential pursuant to Tennessee law, and we'll have no comment on that.
A lot of people in Gatlinburg right now may be frustrated by this decision. Do you have any response to those people?
I disagree. I think people aren't looking for scapegoats. I think they're looking for answers. And I think if this is the beginning of answering questions that need to be answered, and how this fire started, why it couldn't be stopped, etc. So when you have over 100 witness statements, you have a team of investigators, you have prosecutors, you have defense lawyers telling you that the conduct of these juveniles didn't cause the Gatlinburg fire, that's the beginning of answers that I think people need to know and deserve to know.
Listening to Gregory Isaacs, the attorney for one of the teenagers charged with aggravated arson in the Smoky Mountain wildfires. Again, today charges were dropped in their involvement, dropped in their entirety. A couple of reasons, and they are twofold. One, the Chimney Tops 2 fire, they're saying did not cause the Gatlinburg fires beyond a reasonable doubt. And number 2, it dealt with legal jurisdiction when pursuing criminal prosecution, stating in part this excludes the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So much more details on this. We're going to continue to stream this online, and you can check that out at WSMV.com. Be sure to stay with us because as we learn more, we will bring it to you. The very latest on our breaking news. You can, of course, get all the past information as well on the Smoky Mountain wildfires on our website, WSMV.com. We'll also send out breaking news push alerts to your phone if you have the Channel 4 app downloaded. Stay with us. Channel 4 News at noon. We'll be right back.